So this is the first confirmed case of COVID-19 caused by the Omicron variant detected in the United States.
The first known U.S. Omicron case has been found in California, U.S. health officials announced on Wednesday. The patient, who was fully vaccinated but did not have a booster shot, has mild symptoms, according to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top U.S. infectious disease official who briefed reporters at the White House.
The individual was a traveler who returned from South Africa on November the 22nd and tested positive on November the 29th. The individual is self-quarantining, and all close contacts have been contacted, and all close contacts thus far have tested negative.
For days, U.S. health officials have warned that the new variant, first detected in southern Africa and announced on November 25th, was likely already in the United States, as dozens of other countries also detected its presence.
The profile of the molecular profile of the kinds of mutations that you see would suggest, A, that it might be more transmissible and that it might elude some of the protection of vaccines. But we don't know that now. We don't know what the constellation of mutations are actually going to be. We have to be prepared that there's going to be a diminution in protection.
Fauci said it could take 2 weeks or more to gain insight into how easily the variant spreads from person to person, how severe it is, and whether it can bypass the protections provided by vaccines. President Joe Biden on Wednesday repeated that the new variant is a cause for concern, but not a cause for panic. Biden said earlier in the week the country would not go back into lockdowns and promised to lay out his strategy on Thursday for combating the pandemic over the winter.
Wall Street had a volatile session Wednesday, with stocks giving up all their gains after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced the first U.S. case of the Omicron variant. The infected person, who arrived in California from South Africa, was fully vaccinated but did not get the booster shot. Selling picked up after top U.S. disease expert Anthony Fauci said the molecular profile of the new COVID-19 variant suggests that it might be more transmissible and might even evade some vaccine protection, but cautioned it was too early to say. Still, the Dow tumbled 461 points, the S&P 500 fell 53, the Nasdaq lost 283. Not all investors were selling. Kim Forrest of Boca Capital Partners is looking for bargains in the market's recent volatility.
So whenever the stocks are falling, I'm buying. So I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know. Whenever the stock market's down, it pretty much is Black Friday on, the day after Thanksgiving for me. So I'm pretty happy. The other thing is I always maintain a much longer time frame than most portfolio managers. I'm looking out 3 to 5 years for these stocks to go up. So time is on my side. If I can get something at a discount, I'm happy.
And there were plenty of stock market discounts to be had on Wednesday. Travel and tourism stocks were once again hit hard. New protocols in the wake of the Omicron variant are expected to add to headaches for airlines with international routes. Some countries, possibly even the U.S., will start requiring international passengers to show a negative COVID-19 test regardless of their vaccination status. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said the new variant will have a near-term impact on bookings. His company's stock was down roughly 7.6%. Delta was down close to 7.4%. American Airlines fell nearly 8%. Salesforce had a rough day, but not because of the health crisis. The software giant is facing stiff competition from Microsoft and guided quarterly estimates lower. The stock tumbled roughly 12%.
Hi, everyone. I'm San Francisco Mayor London Breed, and I know that many of you have been anxious to hear what's happening with this new Omicron variant of the coronavirus. And we're here today to talk about and announce that here in the city and county of San Francisco, under the University of California, San Francisco, and our partnership with the Department of Public Health, using the latest of technology, we have discovered our first case, not only here in San Francisco, but the entire country. And I wanted to, at this time, introduce Dr. Grant Colfax to talk about the specifics and what that means in terms of what we need to do as a city. Dr. Colfax.
This is not a surprise. For those of you who have been following this, we knew that Omicron was going to be here. We thought it was already here. We just hadn't detected it yet. So this is cause for concern, but it is also certainly not a cause for us to panic. We are prepared here in the city for this. With regard to the case itself, the person recently traveled to South Africa and developed symptoms upon their return, and they did the right thing and got tested and reported their travel history. They had received a full dose of the Moderna vaccine, but no booster. They had mild symptoms and thankfully have now recovered.
If you think that the issue is one of choice, that women should have a choice to terminate their pregnancy, that supposes that there is a point at which they've had the fair choice. If it really is an issue about choice, why is 15 weeks not enough time?
For a few reasons, Your Honor. First, the state has conceded that some women will not be able to obtain an abortion before 15 weeks, and this law will bar them from doing so. And a reasonable possibility standard would be completely unworkable for the courts. It would be both less principled and less workable than viability. And some of the reasons for that are, without viability, there will be no stopping point. States will rush to ban abortion at virtually any point in pregnancy. Mississippi itself has a 6-week ban that it's defending with very similar arguments as it's using to defend the 15-week ban, and there are states that have bans.
Well, I know, but I'd like to focus on the 15-week ban. The argument would not be as strong, I think you'll have to concede, given what we're talking about, which is not a prohibition, it's a 15-week line. Is that right?
The state is not actually asking this court to replace it with a clear 15-week line that would provide some measure of continued protection for this right. They're asking the court to reverse the liberty interest altogether or leave it up in the air. And if that were to happen, then immediately states with 6-week bans, 8-week bans, 10-week bans, and so on would seek to enforce those with no continued guidance of what the scope of the liberty interest is going forward.
You emphasized that if 15 weeks were approved, then we'd have cases about 12 and 10 and 8 and 6. And so my question is there a line in there that the government believes would be principled or not?
I don't think there's any line that could be more principled than viability. I think the factors the court would have to think about are what is most consistent with precedent, what would be clear and workable, and what would preserve the essential components of the liberty interest. And viability checks all of those boxes and has the advantage as well as being a rule of law for 50 years.
Thank you. That's helpful, counsel. Appreciate it.
Justice Kavanaugh?
Why should this court be the arbiter rather than Congress, the state legislatures, state Supreme Courts, the people being able to resolve this? And why is that not the right answer?
Justice Kavanaugh, it's not the right answer because the court correctly recognized that this is a fundamental right of women. And the nature of fundamental rights is that it's not left up to state legislatures to decide whether to honor them or not.
I think each country will make decisions based on what's useful and good for their consumers and based on where the price is along those lines. China has already not only privately but publicly expressed interest in tapping into their reserves in order to moderate the price and to make sure that we have some stability in the markets going forward. Again, that's in their interest as much as it's in any other countries or consumers' interests out there. And I suspect we will see different kinds of announcements and different kinds of measures from their end, just as you'll see additionally from the U.S. side, depending on where the price goes and depending on, first and foremost, let me just say this incredibly clearly on behalf of this administration. The metric of success for any policy from our end related to these issues is what is the price at the pump, what are consumers paying, et cetera. If that price goes down, that is a good thing for consumers at the pump. The metric of our success is not whether we get 50 million barrels out as quickly as we possibly can. The metric of success is to use the tools that the president has been given us so that we can have that impact on consumers as helpfully as we can over a period of time. That's where our flexibility to use our tools, the exchange, the sale, is incredibly helpful. And we hope other countries are thinking about this not at one particular moment in time, but over a period of time to deal with a volatile market. We've got a lot of flexibility. The president gave us flexibility as part of that announcement of when to time that exchange, when to do the sale, when to use those tools over the next several month period of time, depending on where the price of oil is and depending on where the price of gasoline is at the pumps for consumers. So if the price of oil goes down significantly, if the pain at the pump that's currently being experienced by consumers around our country and around the world as well dissipates for whatever reason, then we use the tools differently than we would use if the price remains high or even goes up further along those lines.